Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 2 in season 18. We're in a new book, that's Titus, and we're going to talk about some qualifications for elders. We are going to title today, Bearing the Marks of Exposure, which is kind of my definition for holiness. We'll get to that. Paul is telling Titus that he has sent him to Crete for two things: to put the place in order. And he's going to do that by emphasizing two things. One is the truth. That's going to happen in chapter 2, where he's going to teach sound doctrine, because we have a God that never lies, and the Cretans had some problems with making a God of their own understanding, modeled on their local god Zeus. But today, he's going to emphasize organization. He's going to talk about eldership and overseership and teachership and leading a congregation. It's all one office. So this is from Titus chapter 1, verses 5 through 8. It's very similar to what we did in Timothy, 1 Timothy chapters 3 and a little bit in chapter 6. It's the same idea. You'll see here. Titus chapter 1, verse 5. This is why I left you in Crete, that you might put what remained into order. So that's the charge he has for organization and truth. And appoint elders in every town as I directed you. And I was going to talk about the characteristics of these elders. If anyone is above reproach, the husband of one wife, and his children are believers and not open to the charge of debauchery or insubordination. For an overseer, as God's steward, must be above reproach. He must not be arrogant or quick-tempered or a drunkard or violent or greedy for gain, but hospitable, a lover of good, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. All right, so the first thing he says is that this person, this elder, is a man who is appointed. Now, who appoints him? It's other wise, spiritually oriented, spiritually authoritative, which means spiritually accountable, recognized people in the church. So we have here, Paul is appointing Titus, who's going to appoint these elders. They are local. That is, generally, they are here. So they are from us in every town, he says. These are people who are for us as a congregation, and for the Lord. So kind of two arms of this. One is that they represent God to the congregation, and that's what this instruction is going to be all about. That's how they're going to exercise their authority, primarily is through instruction. And then also is they represent the people before God. So they have kind of one foot in each. I was thinking about Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3, where Isaiah goes before the Lord and he says, "Woe is me, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips." So I represent these sinners before God. I understand the theology that Jesus is the one that does it, but we bear the sin of a people, that the pangs of an assembly before him and our shortcomings. Okay, so let's go through some of the qualifications. We talked about all these before in 1 Timothy chapter 3, but one is above reproach. It's a public office, and remember that there's a public reputation at stake, and there's even a public correction when it goes badly. The second thing is husband of one wife. This is a person that gets Genesis chapter 3 and all the way through the Bible, and Jesus preached on it as well. But it's a foundational principle of Christianity. Thirdly, children. So the household, it's a fair thing to look at your elders and to look at the character of his household. Why? Well, it's a 20-year test track that you get to assess on how he has done with making these theological principles practical. He's described as an overseer, an episkopos, and God's steward, which means manager. It's a person that understands, hey, I work primarily for God, and I administrate on behalf of Him. It's not my treasure. I'm not treasurer of my treasure. I'm treasurer of His treasure. I'm the keeper of the account. I'm the accountant of the treasure, if you will. Then he mentions arrogance. Well, remember, this is a tricky one. Always the three problems in pastors. Number one is pride, and the conceit of pride. Secondly is profit, the greedy for gain. That's mentioned here again, and power, domineering. That's in 1 Peter chapter 5. Another one, quick-tempered. That is a person that's inclined to be angry. You should go driving with them for a while and see what happens on the road. A drunkard, so this area of self-control. You want a person who is master of his personal habits rather than mastered by his personal habits. Violence, that's a physical manifestation of the inclination to be angry. And then hospitable, a lover of different people that are not like you. He gets the gospel in the sense that, hey, you're a stranger to the kingdom. You're a foreigner. You're an alien, and God welcomes us in. Lover of the good, self-controlled, upright, and holy. So all these characteristics are comprehensive things. You want a person who's walking by the Spirit. You want a person who is going uphill, if you will, who hasn't ended up just by entropy, where we at the least common denominator. That when they're tempted, they do the right thing with it. I think of the passage in 1 Corinthians. Chapter 10, verse 13, no temptation has overtaken you or seized you that's not common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation will provide a way of escape. So you want a person that's taken the way of escape a time or two and gone uphill, if you will. So the characteristics here are sexual temptation, anger, self-control, financial generosity, all these things. So here again we have a person who bears the marks of exposure to God by all these characteristics in personal disciplines. These are the kind of people that we want pastoring over us. Thanks for listening.